Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour brought to you by Picasso's Pizza and the Cover One Sports Network. Today, we will be breaking down all things from yesterday, including the Bills and the Patriots. We'll also be talking a little Ravens, Dolphins, and previewing what we have to look forward to next week as the Buffalo Bills vie for the AFC East and the 2 seed, and could also still be looking at elimination entirely from the postseason. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. This evening, we will be breaking down the Buffalo Bills 27-21 survival, a good word, over the New England Patriots yesterday. Dave, I made this comment after, as we were coming out of the bye week. I was like, the playoffs start now. Right? Like every game after the bye week, I said it's a playoff game.
Yep.
And sure enough, had it not been for a win against Kansas City, a win against Dallas, this win against New England, right? The win against the Chargers, which I just completely forgot about for a second there, right? Without those wins that we strung together, the Buffalo Bills are probably eliminated from postseason contention. But here we are, all of these wins strung together later, vying for the number 2 seed and the AFC East title on Sunday Night Football. With the caveat being, if we lose to the Miami Dolphins, we would need either a Jacksonville victory, a Tennessee victory over Jacksonville, a Ravens possibly backups victory over the Steelers, or a Colts-Texans tie in order to make the postseason with a loss. So again, the Buffalo Bills truly did start their postseason after the bye week. And as Richard Forbes says, survive in advance.
Yeah, of course. And obviously we're hoping yesterday that the Seahawks would take care of business against the Steelers, but that Steelers got that running game going against that Seahawks defense, and the Seahawks really had no answer for that. And so once again, Mike Tomlin finds himself in the situation where he's coached himself into another season without a losing record. And it's incredible the run he's on. The Steelers are not going to be an easy out, even for the Ravens backups. I know it's Mason Rudolph, but we thought the Seahawks at home could take care of the Steelers and Mason Rudolph, and they didn't. So the Bills get the win. They come out of the bye. We said going into the bye that a win against the Eagles would have been really nice momentum. There was some momentum, even a really tough loss to swallow against that Eagles team with the offense really performing well. And the Bills did come out and beat the Chiefs and the Cowboys right out of the bye. So at the end of the day, the Bills can't really sit here and rely on other games. They just have to go out there and take care of business in week 18. And that's the expectations I'm setting internally for myself. I'm not hoping for anything else because I'm just not expecting it. Right. So at this point, I'm just hoping the Bills win.
What's nice is going into the game on Sunday Night Football, we'll know exactly what we need to do in that football game, because all of the other games, the Indy Texans game, the Jacksonville game, the Pittsburgh game, all those games are before the Buffalo Bills, who cap off the 2023 NFL regular season. Let's go back and rewind to yesterday, which was a division win in December versus a very stingy defense. Like we talked about that in the pregame show. Like the Patriots have one of the better defenses in the National Football League, and it showed. The Buffalo Bills did exactly what they had to do to survive and advance. But what was your biggest takeaway from this football game? And people in the comments section, what was if you had to take one thing away from this football game, what are you taking away from it? Dave, I'll start with you.
Yeah, this one's tough, right? Because you can go really kind of two totally opposite directions, right? You can talk about like a takeaway on the offensive side and kind of the struggles there, or you can go with what Pops is saying here, defense in the first quarter, amazing. And I think that my biggest takeaway in seeing sort of how this Bills defense played, even though they weren't great against the Chargers, but against the Cowboys, against the Chiefs, against this Patriots team, who obviously doesn't have a great offense, but this defense has been under the fire a lot for their late game performances, including by myself, like over the course of this show over the past several weeks. But man, have they really stepped it up the last few weeks, forcing more turnovers, bailing the offense out, honestly, at times, the last 2 games specifically against the Chargers and now the Pats. And for a team that had so many injuries on the defensive side of the ball, kind of still piecing together what looks to be a pretty solid defense now, getting Daquan Jones back, the acquisition of Rasul Douglas, which we'll talk about obviously at length when we get to the defense, and then guys like Terrel Bernard obviously stepping up in his second year. So for me, the biggest takeaway is that this defense can win in the playoffs. And I think it's just a matter of whether this offense can get consistency. But this defense to me is showing that they can get it done. And in the late game, that's obviously going to be the thing that comes into question still at times, but the way they performed early on in this game, and they just kind of kept they won the game basically for the Bills.
Oh, 100%. I get first play of the game, special teams pops off, lets Jalen Reagor return a kick for a touchdown. Like it's 13-7 at one point, and our defense had 3 turnovers, all like inside the 30-yard line. Like it was absolutely incredible how, despite what the defense was doing, the Buffalo Bills were unable to put this football game away and, accumulate a big enough lead to not make it a nail biter towards the end. And you mentioned it, like you got to give credit where credit is due, and you got to give credit to Sean McDermott, his play calling, and this defense. You got to give credit to Brandon Beane for going out and getting Rasul Douglas at the trade deadline, right? Linval Joseph came in, played his role. Now he takes a step to the side, right? And you have Tim Settle playing probably the best football he's ever played as a Buffalo Bill. Poona Ford looking extra motivated. Daquan Jones, as somebody mentioned, playing 52% of the snaps. Terrel Bernard balling out. Rasul Douglas balling out. Christian Benford balling out. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde had a pretty good day outside of that one penalty from Jordan Poyer. The Bills made a very, very difficult decision to inactivate Von Miller, and they went with some of their other guys in the defensive end rotation, and it paid off. The Buffalo Bills were able to account for a lot of pressures on Bailey Zappi in this football game. You got to give credit where credit is due and give credit to Sean McDermott, the defensive mind. But at the same time, you also struggle with it a little bit too, right? Because you ask yourself, and again, and I'm about to get into my biggest takeaway, and my biggest takeaway is I've had my eyes so much on the future, right, that I haven't been thinking enough about the present. But looking ahead to the future, right, the future of the Buffalo Bills football team beyond 2023, how much longer can Sean McDermott be the defensive coordinator of this football team? Because he just seems like he's stretching himself so thin to get that unit exactly how he wants it. And exactly how he wants it is exceptional. But like, what's being left at the wayside, right? What's not being accounted for? Because you see Matthew Smiley in charge of the special teams giving up a bunch of stuff. You see the offense has not been consistent this year like it has been in years past. And that's not to say it's been uber consistent in years past. So that's one of the things that I struggle with, but I'm going to get to that in a moment. John Roberts comes in and says Josh Allen needs to pass the ball more accurately. I would say so. Pete Nana comes in and says, these are the close games everyone was asking for us to win. Maybe be careful what you wish for. I missed the blowouts, right? So again, a lot of different things here from people. My biggest takeaway is, and like I said, I've been struggling with this, right? Like every time I watch a game in 2023, and maybe it's because after the Broncos game, I thought the season was over. I thought it was over. I thought the Buffalo Bills had no chance to make the playoffs. I thought even if they made the playoffs, they'd be one and done. My mind since the Broncos game has been on 2024. And maybe I've just been looking at this season in the wrong lens, because every time I look at something and I'm like, well, it's okay for now, but what about next year, right? Like, so my biggest takeaway is I feel like I need to correct my lens a little bit, because I've been looking at it like this season's a roller coaster. I feel like there's some systematic issues on offense. How much longer can Sean McDermott put so much of his time and energy into this defense when he has to be the head coach of this football team? I just had so many big picture questions that I'm not realizing the fact that we just beat despite the fact that they have 4 wins, we just beat a team with a really good defense that we had to play for a second time this year in December to get to another 10-win season. What, the 4th or the 5th consecutive 10-win season? 5th consecutive 10-win season. No, I don't think anyone else except for maybe the Chiefs can say that they've done that. And we're playing for the AFC East in the 2 seed next week, right? So I think my biggest takeaway is I have a ton of concerns about this team heading into the offseason, but I need to put a cap on all that. And I let it get to me on social media too, and people have been ripping me apart on social media. And in part, I deserve it, right? Because I'm looking so far ahead that I'm not living in the present moment. So to me, my biggest takeaway is we got 1 week, right? We got the Miami Dolphins coming into town. And then once we hopefully handle our business in Miami Gardens and we focus on Miami Gardens, then it's again 1 week by 1 week. And our ultimate goal is to win the Super Bowl. Who cares how ugly it is? We just got to do what we need to do to get there.
And that's the thing, which kind of this game, and I forgot who said this on social media. It might have been Big Cat from Barstool, but like the fact that the Bills have the outcome of either being the 2 seed and winning the AFC East again, or possibly not being in the playoffs at all, is pretty much just like a summation of this team this year in one game. And yes, the Dolphins are going to be banged up. Yes, the Dolphins have a safety net because they're already in the playoffs no matter what. So what I would say about it is, regardless of the injuries that the Dolphins have, and regardless of sort of like the history the Bills have had against the Dolphins in recent years with Josh Allen as the quarterback, the pressure squarely on the Bills in this upcoming game against the Dolphins. So it's going to be, and people have been commenting in the comment section, this Josh Allen's the common denominator, et cetera. We're going to get to that in just a second when we talk about the offense. That's what it's going to come down to, right? It's going to come down to, can the Bills put together a complete game or close to complete game on both sides of the ball? And they haven't really shown that they've done that consistently this year outside of a few games. So maybe this week they can do it. But yeah, your concerns, I think, beyond 2023 are valid, and I do think your biggest takeaway from this is also valid. So yeah, I mean,
it's a tough world to live in, man.
It's a tough world. It's a tough world. It's a tough world to live in right now. But this is where we are.
First world problems, though. First world problems. All right. Before we get to the offense, I just part of me wants to start with the defense today, but we've already got the bottom graphic, so I don't want to confuse anyone who's watching on demand. So we'll talk about the offense first, then get to the awesome day that the defense had. But first, the best way to support us here at Cover One, the Cover One Buffalo guys have got you covered with that information.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills offense. And the Buffalo Bills offense, I mean, they struggled. If before this game started, you would have told me the Buffalo Bills scored 27 points today, I would have been fine with it, right? Because I think that would have been my pregame prediction was 27-13. I didn't expect the Buffalo Bills to put up a ton of points on this Patriots defense because they're a stingy defense. They're a good defense. They have been all year long. But then if you would have told me that we would have had 3 possessions that started inside the 30-yard line, right? Or the 35-yard line and only scored 27 points, then I would get angry and get in my feelings, which is what I did. the Buffalo Bills offense was out of sync, was out of rhythm. They very rarely found what they needed to do in order to be successful enough to score enough points to accumulate a win in this football game. And they, quite frankly, let their defense down.
They absolutely did. I mean, this defense was balling out from the get-go, as we said, going in during the pregame. The defense was going to be sort of emotionally jacked up, or at least we predicted they would be with the return of Daquan Jones, the fact that they had given up 29 points to the Patriots in the last meeting. Ed Oliver playing in this game didn't play in the last Patriots game, et cetera, right? So the offense certainly let the defense down. Josh Allen was inaccurate with the football early in the game.
Yeah.
Josh Allen's decision-making was poor, which we said going into in the pregame was like an area that like had to be clean, right? Because that was a way that this Patriots team would be able to stay in the game. And we saw both of those things kind of rear their heads, right? The bad accuracy early on, and really the accuracy wasn't particularly crisp for most of the afternoon. He did make some throws to Kincaid and Shakir, but a couple of those throws, Shakir specifically had to adjust, and the balls weren't
Davis
perfect.
too.
Yeah.
Davis
so look, I mean, there is blame, and a lot of the blame is going to go to Josh Allen. I wasn't a huge fan of some of the third down play calling early on either, but it was all kind of a perfect storm happening for the Bills early on offense in a bad way, right? Inaccuracy, bad decision making, wasn't sure about the play calling, really no rhythm, really no juice, and it just kind of, if it wasn't for the defense giving the Bills those short fields, you said you'd be happy with 27 points. The field position also, but also let's not forget one of those touchdowns was from the defense as well. So
the whole offense was scattershot too, because Adam Shepard comes in here and says, not to make a ton of excuses for Josh, but he was under pressure a lot. The offensive line struggled.
The drops were bad
too. 4 drop passes in the game. Like there was, it was just, everything was a mess, right? Like from top to bottom, nothing was working. You want to know how I knew how bad the Buffalo Bills offense was fighting it? They literally had no regard whatsoever for Josh Allen as a runner. Like they didn't care. Like they were just like, if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do today. Like go out and do it. Like that's how pressed this offense was they were putting Josh Allen in harm's way as a runner a ton in this football game. And that's exactly how you knew how pressed they were. So from Josh Allen's inaccuracy the entire game to Josh Allen being under pressure to the drops of the wide receiver, I had a lot of questions about the play calling as well. And you mentioned the third down play calling. The ball, they were getting pressure the entire beginning of this football game. And I just kept thinking to myself, why are we in 11 personnel? Why are we spreading the ball out so much? Like, shouldn't we have more guys in to protect? Like, shouldn't we do all these like different things? Like, I was very confused why they weren't just, this is what, and I want your opinion on this too. Why does it seem so difficult for this elite offense that the Bills supposedly are supposed to have to do like easy things? I watch a lot of football, and there are a lot of teams, even bad teams, who can just dink a ball off to their running back for 4 or 5 yards when they need it.
Look at Jake Browning yesterday against the Chiefs.
There are teams that like the Bengals don't have any problems scheming Jamar Chase open, right? The Raiders don't have any problem scheming Devontae Adams open, right? Like they don't have any problems like getting these guys some easy stuff. The Bills seem very hard pressed right now just to get the ball in Stephon Diggs' hands. Like it's all screen passes, like, and just underneath stuff. Like, and we'll get to that in a moment too. Just absolutely weird. Why is it so difficult for this elite offense that can do so many great things to not be able to do the little things right?
Yeah, I think it's there, but it just isn't. It isn't there as consistently as you'd want it from a team with Josh Allen as the quarterback, right? And I think
he might be part of the problem too. Like it might be him who struggles to dump the ball off. It might be him who struggles to hit the underneath guy. Like he could be part of that issue.
He is part of that issue, and I think like what tends to happen is he like reverts to the mean. Sometimes it seems like he has like a game or two where he is really deliberate and he's decisive and kind of making that outlet throw or taking what the defense has given him. And then he tends to revert back to other things. And now I know that's like oversimplifying it a bit. And I get that, but like there is a point where we said this with Ken Dorsey last year with the utilization of Dawson Knox. Like, get this guy the ball, like get him some easy catches, like give your guys a chance to make plays with the ball in their hands. And I would say they have been trying to do that with Diggs, right? And this is the reason why they're throwing some of these passes to him at or around the line of scrimmage. But those plays haven't really been working to Diggs, and it just seems like when they do try to set things up that should be easy, it still seems like it's always so difficult for them. This team is very much, it feels to me like this team is very much a momentum offense. If they're cooking and they're rolling, like it snowballs and they do really well. But it is really hard, I think, for this team when they're not in rhythm, when they have very little momentum, for them to seize that momentum, to get that momentum, and to get on track. So it's almost like how they start the game, to me, is almost like how they're going to play for the entire game. And there's some truth to that. Like, look at the Eagles game. They go down in that Eagles game and they move the ball pretty well that entire game, and the offense looks pretty good the whole game. The Chargers game, it was a labor. It was laboring. The Broncos game, it was laboring. The Buccaneers game, laboring. Like, this team needs momentum, needs rhythm to, I think, be at their best. And whereas other teams, maybe like the Chiefs, because they have Andy Reid, maybe even other teams like the Rams with Sean McVay, like they can get out of that negative momentum, I think, easier than a team like the Bills can.
Yeah. And Josh Allen up front in this game, because a couple people in the comment section have mentioned the offensive line. Under pressure in this game, he was 2 for 8 for 14 yards. When blitzed, he was 2 for 10 for 69 yards. He had that big play to Kincaid, which kind of saved his yardage there. No touchdowns or no picks, right? But so not a great day for Josh Allen when he was under pressure. But looking beyond that, and again, play calling was a thing to me in this game. Like, not taking some easies. And again, I wholeheartedly believe Josh Allen plays a role in this, because people say all the time, I wish Kyle Shanahan was our offensive coordinator, or I wish we had a head coach like Kyle Shanahan. I question whether a marriage between Kyle Shanahan and a Josh Allen would work, right? Because Josh Allen is very much like a down the field, out of structure, like type of guy, where Kyle Shanahan, like, he needs a quarterback who can keep the trains moving on time. And I don't know if that's really stylistically, philosophically what Josh Allen wants to do as a quarterback. So be careful what you wish for there. But still, Joe Brady and some of his play calling, there was a point in this game where they threw us, it was like a short pass to Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs ran for a first down, but Khalil Shakir got called for a hold, and it brought the play back, and it was first and 15 or first and 17, something like that. And I'm watching the TV broadcast, and I see Khalil Shakir put his jacket on, and then I see Stephon Diggs putting his jacket on. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then I go and I see the personnel on the field, and it's like 21 personnel with Reggie Gilliam out in the field, and the extra tight end on the field, and Trent Sherfield is the one wide receiver. I straight up looked at the TV and I said, this is going to be a play action deep shot. I literally knew it was going to be a play action deep shot. If Steve Mathis, sitting on my couch at home, knows exactly what the Buffalo Bills are going to do on first and 15 when they're in 21 personnel with one wide receiver, that wide receiver being Trent Sherfield, when I know exactly what they are going to do, I would gather that Bill Belichick also has a pretty good idea what the Buffalo Bills were going to do. And when he sniffed out exactly what they were going to do, and Dalton Kincaid was double covered down the field, Josh Allen made a dumbass pass into double coverage, and it got picked off. So yeah, Josh, super dumb, right? That is 100% on him for making that dumbass throw. But at the same time, while it's 100% on him for making that dumbass throw, it's also on the offensive coordinator for that dumbass play call, which set up your quarterback, who makes those dumbass decisions, to do a dumbass thing. So like, everyone wanted to blame Josh Allen for that play, and I'm like, I feel like there's some blame to go around there. I feel like Joe Brady should have known better in that situation, right? Like, nothing worked out in that situation and that play call.
No. And a little sidebar here, the arm punt
Mhm.
conversation, and I said this on Twitter yesterday, like, an arm punt is not throwing an interception on 1st and 16. Like, that's a turnover. That's a bad decision. It's a bad play call. It's it's just bad all around, and I
Mhm.
agree with you. I mean, I was even probably more so blaming Josh Allen than and look, at the end of the day, like, he has the option to, like, either throw that ball long or throw it away, make a better read on the defense. It is a
Mhm.
bad play call one way or another, but yeah, there's certainly blame to go around there, and
Mhm.
certainly I would say probably Joe Brady's worst game as a play caller so far. I think largely people would agree with that. But
Mhm.
we also have to remember again, like, how much has he really? We were maybe a little bit too early
Mhm.
to crown him based on vibes, I'll say.
Yeah.
But still, one game, right?
I
So
I I like Joe Brady too. Like if the Buffalo Bills were, and again, it also depends on what happens next week and if we get into the playoffs, what happens in the playoffs, because things could change between then and now. I think Joe Brady certainly has a better resume than Ken Dorsey is. Like we were both on this show saying we thought it was a mistake hiring Ken Dorsey 2 years ago, and we were both on this show saying the Buffalo Bills should never have given Ken Dorsey a year number 2. Both of us said that, right? Like so we have the receipts. I wouldn't mind giving Joe Brady the full-time gig this offseason if the Buffalo Bills feel like that's what's best after they interview whoever it is they interview to be offensive coordinator. I feel like he's got the resume. He had a really good first year in Carolina where 4 guys had 1,000-yard seasons. He comes from a Sean Payton tree. He's worked under some pretty good head coaches, guys like Sean Payton, right? He worked at LSU and he had that Joe Burrow offense and he was a big part of that If you want to hire Joe Brady, that's fine. Could an offseason fix a lot of these issues? I think so. But when focusing in on 2023, like this was a day where you saw the fact that this is a play caller and a quarterback that have not been working together very long in terms of one of those guys having the ability to call plays. And the other big issue that I have with Joe Brady right now, and again, 2020, an offseason could fix this. A training camp can fix this. But the Buffalo Bills throwing all these passes behind the line of scrimmage, going for absolutely nothing, I think is a big part of what's slowing this offense down right now. Josh Allen threw 6 passes behind the line of scrimmage yesterday. He completed 5 of them for 10 yards. And he would have been 6 for 6, but the other one was dropped. I think actually that one might have been past the line of scrimmage, right? But it was the James Cook drop. So 5 for 6 for 10 yards. You've essentially wasted 6 plays, right? Like throw that out the window. Like if there's like an engage 8 all out blitz and you want to throw like a cover 0 beater like we used to John Brown, sure. Okay. But if this is your idea to get the ball in the hands of Stephon Diggs, we got to find a new way to get the ball in the hand of Stephon Diggs because this stuff behind the line of scrimmage, again, could be fixed in a training camp in an off season, right? It's not getting fixed in the next 2 weeks. Like it's not. So I think that stuff's got to get out of the playbook.
Yeah, and like that'll be one of the biggest storylines of the offseason is whether or not that
Mhm.
interim tag is removed from Joe Brady or
Mhm.
whether or not he goes through an interview process against other candidates. Obviously, something to
Mhm.
discuss for this upcoming offseason and
Yeah.
kind of ties into Jason's super chat
Yeah.
here. Thank you, Jason. Brady
Yep.
deserves nothing yet. How short is our memory? Dorsey was hot until he got adjusted to. Brady was hot. Now he's being adjusted to.
Yeah.
I need to see their counterpunch. And that's a fair comment,
Yeah.
I would say, from
100%.
Jason. It's 100%
Mhm.
fair. It's a small sample size
But
still from Joe Brady.
I've seen enough that I like. Obviously, it could all plummet in the next week, 3 weeks. Obviously, this game against the Patriots wasn't perfect. I've seen enough flashes of things that I like, and I like his resume. That would be the reason why if they hired him for the job, I'd be okay with it. But I'd also need to see who else is available, what coaches are getting fired around the league, right? And I'd also need to see what candidates the Buffalo Bills brought in to compare those against Joe Brady at the same time. Because if a really good play caller becomes available and the Buffalo Bills have a chance to hire him, I might like that guy more than Joe Brady. So, Jason, you're 100% spot on. But so my comment earlier was based on just I do like his resume, and I do think he's done some good things in the past couple of weeks here for the Buffalo Bills. All right. Anything else on the offense before we get to the defense here, Dave?
Let's go to defense.
Yeah,
I'm done with
I,
this offense right now.
I had a couple of things in my in my list here, I shout out a tweet that got a lot of run yesterday at halftime about the things that I think are wrong with this offense. And I don't want to dig too much into them, but these are things that I think that we are going to end up talking about over the course of the offseason. And again, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here, but I'm just trying to pull up. These are the 5 things I think that are the biggest issues with this offense right now. And you can tell me as I go through the 5 whether you agree or disagree. I think that our wide receivers don't naturally separate. Like,
Yep.
I do think Sherfield and Hardy have been absolute busts. Gabe Davis, he's not a natural separator. Khalil Shakir is not even, in my opinion, a natural separator. Stephon Diggs is getting up there in age. The Buffalo Bills are going to have to add, I think, 2 legitimate like speed separating threats at wide receiver this offseason. It's one big issue. Second, no discipline catching the ball. Like, so many drops this year, I feel like. And part of that probably has to do with Josh Allen and how hard he throws the football. But we've had just so many big drops, I feel like, over the last 2 seasons, from the tight ends to the running backs to the wide receivers. Drops are an issue for this offense. So we got to figure out that. An OC who can't scheme guys open. I felt like Ken Dorsey very much was not a scheme guys open kind of guy. He was a kind of guy where the guys lined up, they ran down the field. If they weren't there, Josh Allen made a play out of structure. There's a lot of option routes built into the Buffalo Bills offense. Joe Brady, I don't know how much you can fix of that in the couple of weeks he's been in charge. On top of that, I mentioned earlier, is Josh Allen open to an offense that schemes guys open, right? Like the Kyle Shanahan offense, where it's all about guys being in certain places and guys moving in certain ways to get guys open and all those various different things. Is Josh Allen open to running an offense like that and being a little bit more of a game manager? I think you got to find a balance. I don't think you're going to find that balance in the next 2 weeks. I think the next offensive coordinator needs to find a balance between letting Josh Allen be Josh Allen and having an offense that schemes guys open a little bit. A quarterback who doesn't take the easy stuff. Plain and simple. I think we'd have a couple more wins this year if Josh Allen didn't throw the ball down the field so much and hit some of the guys who were open underneath. You can blame the quarterback too. And I think a lot of people in the comment section today have blamed the quarterback. I think that needs to fixing the deep ball, which has been a huge problem, and being a little bit more patient with the underneath stuff are the 2 things that Josh Allen needs to focus on this offseason. And then last but not least, we just talked about it. The screen game has been bad or non-existent. And it's been bad or non-existent since like Chan Gailey left. Like it's been, those are the 5 things that I think the Buffalo Bills need to fix on offense. And I don't know what can get fixed in the next couple of weeks. All right. On to the Buffalo Bills defense, Dave. And listen, I'm excited about talking about the Buffalo Bills defense. So I apologize for all the people that had to sit through us talking about that offense, because it really is. It's an unfortunate conversation, but I'm going to pull up some statistics I have here. And I think the biggest factor in this game was the Buffalo Bills' early takeaways. But on top of all of that, you look at the Buffalo Bills and you can also look at the pressures that they generated in this game. And it was the pressure that the defensive line applied to Bailey Zappi that in large part contributed to all of these takeaways. The Bills defense accounted for 26 total pressures on Bailey Zappi in this football game, 15 hurries and 3 sacks. It was legitimately a team effort. Gregory Rousseau led the way with 6 pressures and 5 hurries. Terrel Bernard, 6 pressures, 2 sacks, 3 hurries. We'll get to Terrel Bernard in a little bit. His statistics this year have been outstanding. Ed Oliver, 3 pressures, a sack, and a hurry. And Tim Settle, 2 pressures, 2 hurries. And Ed Oliver obviously had a sack as well. Just a total team effort up front, led by some of our young players in Rousseau, Oliver, and Bernard. It was, sounds weird to say because Josh Allen is our quarterback. I had less anxiety and I was more excited when our defense was on the field. It was more fun. It was more enjoyable as a fan to watch our defense fly around than to watch our offense. I don't think I've ever been able to say that in the Josh Allen era.
It's really interesting when you think about the totality of the season and you think about the offense and the defense, and in large part, the offense really struggling out of the gate in a lot of the games and kind of somewhat figuring it out as the game goes along in some cases. And the defense And many times it has been the opposite, right? They've started
Mhm.
out the games really well, and they've kind of lost it a little bit later in the game where they've given up plays or yards or
Mhm.
points or whatever. Um, but this game I felt differently, right? This game, I mean, obviously the opponent is a big
Mhm.
factor there. Bailey Zappi's not obviously um, the biggest threat. He did make some nice throws. I
Yeah.
will give him credit for a couple of those, but the pressures you mentioned, I mean, my hot take before the game was the Bills defense was going to have 5+ sacks in this game. They only ended up with 3 technically, but really
Mhm.
they could have had 5 or more based on the pressures they were getting. There was the one that was nearly a safety, and somehow Zappi got out of it and ended up throwing it away. But there were
Mhm.
a couple other times where the Bills had their hands on Zappi too, and just he made some nice, subtle movements in the pocket. So you're talking about like
He's gonna be a
a
good backup quarterback in this
uh,
league. He
yeah,
is.
and a dominant effort from the defense
Mhm.
and plays still to be had that were out there,
Yeah.
right? And that's the thing that's encouraging to me is that they didn't even
Mhm.
they didn't even get everything their way in some of the times that they've got those pressures on Zappy. So, um, really encouraging. I think Terrel Bernard deserves to make the Pro Bowl this year. He probably won't just because how
Yeah.
it goes, but
Rasul Douglas won't either, and we'll get to Rasul Douglas too in a second. Like it's
yep.
crazy.
But nice to have
Um,
Daquan
No,
back,
sorry,
and you
keep going.
mentioned the 52% snaps, coming back
Mhm.
in this game, like, really, really nice to see that, like, clearly didn't have any ill effects after the game, as he mentioned in his
Mhm.
locker room kind of, his locker room questioning that he got, and so, look, I know Matt Milano's not walking through that door, I know Trey White's not, but
Mhm.
this defense still has a ton of really good talent, and that was also obviously without Von
Yeah.
Miller on the field too, so encouraging for the defense and overall just generally a dominant effort from them, even though they did give up the 21 points. Still, I thought quite dominant effort.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it too with Terrell Bernard, 2 sacks and 10 tackles on the game. He was flying all over the place. This season, he has 6.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries, and 134 total tackles. I mean, this guy is putting up insane numbers. He's making splash plays. I think I saw somewhere the 6.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 3 fumble recoveries. He's the first linebacker to do that since like Seth Joyner in 1991.
91, yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like so he should be a Pro Bowler. He's not going to be because they let the fans vote, and people outside of Buffalo don't know who Terrell Bernard is. He should be an All Pro consideration. He won't be, right? Because again, I don't think some of these people who vote on All Pro pay enough attention to some of these other positions like linebacker. They just go based off of name recognition. It takes a while to get a reputation. It took Matt Milano a while to get himself into the talk for it. And then Jared K comes in and says, "Why didn't we know Bernard was going to be good?" I would push back on that a little bit because I think back to draft night, Dave. What the exact conversation we had on draft night right here, the Cover One Draft Show was, we love the player. We love Terrell Bernard. Like what he did in that Dave Aranda defense at Baylor, that Sugar Bowl that he had, where he had like 16 tackles and like he had a bunch of sacks, like a pick, a forced fumble, right? All the things that he's doing this season, all the splash plays he's making, he made in that Sugar Bowl, and he was a really good player, a veteran leader on that defense at Baylor. The question was never, was Terrell Bernard good? The question was, how does he fit?
Mhm.
And I think that was a natural anxiety for every single Bills fan because you had a tried and true, I don't want to say prototypical because Tremaine Edmonds was like prototypical to the extreme middle linebacker, but you went from that to like this undersized guy, and it took a schematic change and it took a philosophical change. The Buffalo Bills defense blitzes so much more than it did under Leslie Frazier, and it's so perfect for what Terrell Bernard wants, or what you want Terrell Bernard to do. So I would push back on that a little bit. I think people knew, and people in the comment section, I think a lot of people thought Terrell Bernard was good. I just never think they understood his fit, right? So at the end of the day, Roy Collins, like you said, it was a third rounder, but he's been incredible this year. He's been an absolute, as Richie said, he's been a beast.
Yeah, I mean, we talked on draft night about him, his strengths as a blitzer. You mentioned the Sugar Bowl. The size was the concern, right? And if you go back and watch our coverage, that was the question. Like, we wondered
Mhm.
about the size. Was he going to be big enough to play middle linebacker, in the anticipation of Tremaine Edmonds not getting that contract from the Bills, which he did not? Was he going to be more of a
Mhm.
natural backup to a guy like Matt Milano? Didn't really know what the fit was going to be. So I think that was probably the biggest question mark we had, at least for us two, was the fit. And I think a lot of people had that question, to be fair, like, what
Mhm.
was the fit going to be?
Yeah.
And we even said coming into this season, right, was like, are the Bills going to run the same exact defense with Sean
Mhm.
McDermott calling the plays? Are they going to try to find a direct replacement for Tremaine Edmonds? Jack Campbell was the talk pre-draft, Jared Kay
Yeah.
says, and yeah, and that's fair.
Because he was
He was the
prototypical Mike linebacker that we were used to with Tremaine Edmonds. Our defense, despite the fact that we wanted it to be more aggressive and we like what we're seeing this year, what we knew was Leslie Frazier was aggressive in a different way. Leslie Frazier was aggressive in the secondary and disguising his coverages and doing all those things. Sean McDermott goes about it a different way that fits what Terrel Bernard does. We hadn't experienced that as Bills fans watching this defense. So that's why we were gravitating to a guy like Jack Campbell, because we knew he could plug and play, and he's doing exceptional in Detroit, by the way, playing that role of the traditional Mike linebacker.
Yeah, so I think, like, couple things on Bernard, right? One, the
Mhm.
fit, that's been answered. And he's obviously named the starter. And then just his performance, I think, has pretty much exceeded anyone's expectation, right?
Mhm.
I don't think anyone can legitimately say, like, this is what they expected from Terrell
Yeah.
Bernard. Like, no one
No.
can say that.
No.
I don't think anyone can say that, because if
Mhm.
that was the case, like, those people would have been pushing for him as a first or second round linebacker, right? I
Yep.
mean, so I don't think anyone can say that.
Mhm.
Expectations have been exceeded from everyone's point of view, and the fit of him playing middle linebacker, in this Sean McDermott defense, has been answered, right, as
Yeah.
well. So there you go.
How about Rasul Douglas? In this game, he was targeted 6 times. He allowed 2 completions for 22 yards. He forced an incompletion. He had a pass breakup. He had 2 interceptions. And then he also almost had that fumble recovery. Rasul Douglas leads the NFL in takeaways since he became a member of the Buffalo Bills. And then let me pull it up here real quickly. Since arriving in Buffalo, Rasul Douglas's stat line, I have it here somewhere. He's played in 8 games, 44.5 passer rating allowed when targeted, 29 tackles, 8 pass defended, 4 interceptions, a touchdown, 2 fumble recoveries, a sack, and a tackle for a loss. This guy is undoubtedly the most instinctual player on this defense. Insanely instinctual, like elite instincts. He's just a magnet for the football, and he's everything this team needed with the aggressive approach that they have at their front seven.
Yeah, and I mean, the tweet that got the most run that I put out this week was about Rasul Douglas,
Mhm.
and it wasn't even uh like, it wasn't even from this game. It was from the last game. It was like from
Mhm.
the Chargers game. So it was like funny to see that, and then him have come up with the 2 picks in this
Mhm.
game. I mean, trade deadline thievery, whatever you want to call it, right? I think,
Yeah.
like, one of the Bills' first priorities, like, this offseason, has to be whether or
Mhm.
not you let Douglas play out on that $9 million, because you have him under contract in 2024, or you
Mhm.
get some kind of extension for him. I think with the uncertainty with Trey White and the injury,
Mhm.
not sure what Kaiir Elam is going to look like with any further development, if he's going to get another chance. You know what you've got now, really, with Christian Benford. He's probably going to be your one of your starting cornerbacks again next year. You'd like to go into maybe next season with Rasul Douglas on an extension, and Christian Benford there still on his rookie deal as maybe your top 2 guys. So I'd love to see him get an extension. I know we've got him under contract in 2024, $9 million. Um,
Mhm.
there's no penalty right, whatsoever on that contract. But the Bills would be, I think, stupid to cut him, even though they have
Yeah.
potential cap issues, and that's why I say
Mhm.
extension makes the most sense. So, to me, he's earned it, and to me, I
Mhm.
think he's a perfect fit for what the Bills want to do, and he's flourishing in this
Yeah.
system.
Speaking of that pass rush, like I said, Gregory Rousseau had 6 hurries in this game, 5 hurries in this game, excuse me, 6 pressures. He was huge. He's becoming a staple of this defensive line. I'm really looking forward to seeing him back healthy again. And then hopefully we make the playoffs and we get Gregory Rousseau in the postseason and then beyond, because I think the ceiling for a guy like Rousseau is huge when you can get a season of him fully healthy. And then Ed Oliver, I mean, talk about teaming up with Rasul Douglas too. And one more note on Rasul Douglas, because somebody said, Richard Forbes, I think, said something like, wait till that robber gets caught red-handed. I loved Rasul Douglas's comments post game. He's like, a lot of the chances I took off of film study. Like, I knew what Bailey Zappi was going to do in this situation, and that's why I did what I did. Rasul Douglas is like, and his teammates have talked about it, he's like a student of the game. He's like a film room junkie. So he's a very instinctual player, and a lot of what allows him to play fast is he puts the work in the film room, and he knows where to be and when to be there. It's not so much just like guessing like some other people, or in like it's that those instincts come from film study. But Ed Oliver, he had the interception in this game. He has a sack in this game. He's got 9.5 sacks on the season, right? He's got more sacks this year than Aaron Donald, right? He PFF credits him with 11 sacks because they don't do half sacks. He's got 62 total pressures. He's got 6 quarterback hits. He's got 45 quarterback hurries. Ed Oliver is probably the MVP of the Buffalo Bills season right now.
I think if Ed Oliver doesn't get all pro, we talk
Yeah, he
about
should.
Terrel
Yeah,
Bernard. I mean, Ed Oliver should be an all pro this year.
Mhm.
I mean, like, I don't see, like, for people that know football and the people that determine the all pro teams, the people that get the votes to give
Mhm.
guys the all pro nods. Like, if Ed Oliver isn't in all pro consideration, and Claude says that here as well. I don't know what people are watching. I mean, he has
Mhm.
absolutely shown up every single week. The question with Ed Oliver, as we said after he got the contract, was not about the upside; it was about the consistency, right? And
Yep.
we saw the flashes in a lot of different moments in the past several years, but it wasn't
Mhm.
every game in and game out. In 2023, it has been game in and game out. He has shown pretty much the full upside that we thought we could get out of him, even going back to when he was drafted. And he has really, in my
Mhm.
mind, again, probably exceeded my own expectations as well. So, um, to me, he should be an all pro. He is the tone setter for this defense, and
Mhm.
he is the MVP of this defense in my mind for this year. And like, you could have a debate whether it's him or Terrel Bernard, but I mean, you can't go wrong, I think, picking either guy.
Any final thoughts on this defense before we move on to special teams?
Nope. Just know that they need to be ready to go next week.
Yep.
We'll see if
Big
Mostert's
test.
back. We'll see if Waddle's
I,
back.
I
Not
don't. I
sure.
don't. I don't think Wall's gonna be back. High ankle sprain,
Yeah,
speed
probably
being
not.
what dictates this
Mostert
game.
might be. We'll see.
Mm-mm.
He's had given the Bills some problems in
Yeah.
the past, but again, that defense is going to need to come ready to
It,
play again.
how about this to go back to the defense real quick? If we want to give some negatives to the defense, especially with Devon A-Chain coming to town, A-Chan, whatever you want to call him, we're still struggling with the east to west stuff, right? Those multiple reverses, the screen game.
Yeah.
And Eric went in and did the digging. It's not like we're giving up a lot of like 8, 9, 10. When it comes to giving up like 8, 9, 10-yard plays to those screens, to those reverses, to those misdirections, we're not doing an awful job. We're in the middle of the pack, middle of the road. But we've allowed some chunk like 30, 40, 50-yard plays off of these screens, these misdirections, etc. this season. Leads the league, right? So you want to talk about toxic differential and how important that's going to be in beating a team like Miami. The Buffalo Bills defense, one criticism, maybe two criticisms from this game is one, there were points in this game where they got beat in the screen game. And two, there might have been points in this game and the offense being so bad might have dictated this where they maybe got a little too aggressive, right? And allowed Bailey Zappi to make some plays out of structure, which is something he's typically not good at. But you take chances, risk, reward. ultimately the Buffalo Bills came out on the positive side of this game.
Yeah, I mean, and if I'm Achan scares me, obviously, in the screen game. He even in that terrible game they had against the Ravens yesterday was quite efficient with his touches and
Yep.
is a game breaker. He can take it to the house on any time he touches it. So yeah, defense gonna have to put that in some of the practice this week. So can't be giving up those types of plays against Miami.
All right, on to a special teams conversation now, and I'll say it right now, I feel pretty confident betting a lot of money that Matthew Smiley will not be the special teams coordinator of the Buffalo Bills in 2024. Right, like this unit has been abysmal this year. We're used to a team that's top 5 DVOA in special teams, and they've consistently been in the 20s this year. Tyler Bass seems to have course corrected from some issues he had earlier in the season. Sam Martin seems to have course corrected from some issues he had earlier in the season. I think both of those guys are pretty secure. All right. I feel pretty confident in our punting game. I feel pretty confident in our kicking game now, more so than I was at previous points in the season. So that might have been fixed. Now, there's still some times where like Sam Martin almost gets blocked, and that's a little concerning. But the big issue I had in this game, I have 2 big issues. Number one, how the hell do you let Jalen Reagor take the opening kickback for a touchdown? Like, just this team, man, this team just loves to shoot itself in the foot. And number 2, and again, is Sean McDermott stretching himself too thin? Why the fuck do they think it's okay to return kicks out of the end zone in the year 2023 when you can just wave your hands and get the ball at the 30-yard line? Like, why do they think it's okay to return the ball at the end zone? Do they not know you can fair catch it from anywhere on the football field? How fucking stupid is this team to continually, week after week, return the ball out of the end zone and get suboptimal field position?
Yeah,
like I don't mean to swear. I don't mean to be a dick, but like, holy fuck, a 3rd grader could do it. A 3rd grader could better coach the Buffalo Bills kick return unit than Matthew Smiley, a 3rd grader.
It was, and it's one of those things that's been happening weekly, right? It seems like Ty Johnson is taking kicks out of the end zone, getting tackled inside the 20, and
or getting a holding penalty because that's
fucking
foreseeable.
Yeah. Yesterday, 2 different occasions, one time tackled inside the 20, the other time a holding penalty. And for your offense who's struggling, give them the ball at the 25, right? Like, I get the player's mindset is like, well, I'm going to give my offense an even better field if I can get a big return and get it to the 40, 50, or even better. But the fact is like the percentages are against you in that every single time, right? I mean, if you're taking the ball out of the end zone, you are more likely going to get tackled inside the 25 or even inside the 20 than you are to return it like with any significant type of return. Not to mention the injury risk, as was mentioned, and the penalty risk. So to me, it just infuriates me. I think out of all the special team stuff, giving up the opening kick touchdown, that infuriated me, but the continuous returns out of the end zone costing this team field position are just mind-boggling to me.
Week after week it happens. Like, this should have been correct after week 1, because we were talking about this in week 1. Like, why are we returning kicks? It's 2023. The rules are literally set up for you just to wave your hands, fair catch it. Nothing good can come from returning a kick. Like, in terms of percentages, more bad can happen than good. Like what the hell are we doing? And then we said it week 2, and then we said it week 3, and then we said it week 4. Like, how has no one caught on? You don't do it.
Think about what's happened in the last couple of years in the NFL. Number 1, you can fair catch it from anywhere, right? And get it at the 25. Number 2, you don't have to even field the ball if it touches the end zone, right? Like, used to be you still have to field it and kneel it down, right? You don't even have to do that anymore. You can just let it bounce and it's dead. And number 3, you get it at the 25 now and not the 20, which changed, several years ago, like 5 years ago, but an extra 5 yards. So like, that's 3 things right now that they're basically saying, like, we don't want you to return kicks. And you shouldn't.
You're risking injury, you're risking fumble, you're risking a penalty, all because you want to start the 28 instead of the 25. Like, I just don't get it. I don't. Especially when it's Khalil Shakir and Ty Johnson back there, or Leonard Fournette back there.
Yeah, it's not like,
exactly Dante Hall. Like,
that's the other thing. Yeah,
not exactly Devin Hester back there. Yeah, just absolutely infuriating. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we head out, we're obviously going to take a look at the Miami Dolphins. But before we do, this show is brought to you by, if I can ever pull up the graphic, Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations, all in Western New York. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. It's that cup and char pepperoni. You can see it in the image here. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you're listening, you know when I say the cup and char pepperoni with that oil inside, you know exactly. You can picture it. Your mouth starts to salivate. It is Picasso's Pizza. You can find it at picassospizza.net. If you are in Buffalo, it's some of the best pizza in Buffalo. If you're out of town, you can even get it mailed to your door. Again, it is picassospizza.net. All right, speaking now and looking ahead to the game next week against the Miami Dolphins, it's all on the line, right? And the Miami Dolphins have done us some favors. Raheem Mostert is struggling with an injury right now. I think they might have been resting him, thinking that they might have to be playing against this Buffalo Bills team with the AFC East on the line. Jalen Waddle is dealing with a high ankle sprain. He missed the game against the Ravens. I honestly think he's probably going to miss the Bills game, and if he plays this week, I think he won't be the Jalen Waddle you're used to, because his game is dictated off of speed, and he's got a high ankle sprain. Suffered less than a week ago. Bradley Chubb out for the season. Jalen Phillips out for the season. Xavier Howard is probably not going to be playing in this football game. Tua hurt his shoulder. This is a team that we're going up against this week that their offensive output plummets against real opponents. They don't score a lot of points against real teams. So if you're the Buffalo Bills defense, you're a real football team, you expect to, in some way, shape, or form, stymie the Miami Dolphins. And then you look at that defense. It's a defense that Josh Allen should be able to handle. He has handled Vic Fangio in the past, who is the defensive coordinator of that football team. Eli Apple should be starting at cornerback for that football team. Melvin Ingram. There's a lot of Buffalo Bills revenge narratives here. We get Eli Apple and Melvin Ingram, who are probably going to be contributing significantly to this Miami defense this week. Injuries suck. They do. And when this Miami Dolphins team is 100% healthy, they are a force, but they are not. And the Buffalo Bills need to take advantage of it this week.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously the Bills haven't been 100% healthy really since like weeks 1 or 2, right? So,
And the Bills have had a chance to find their groove, right? Miami Dolphins have not had a chance to find that groove.
No. And this is the thing, and like the equalizer, I think, is going to be the pressure that's on the Bills to win this game, right? Because one way or another, and I mentioned at the top of the show, the Dolphins have a safety net. The Bills don't, right? Now, by the time this game gets played, maybe the Bills do have a safety net. Maybe the Ravens beat the Steelers on Saturday. Maybe the Titans beat the Jags on Sunday afternoon before the Sunday night game. But I wouldn't count on either of those things to happen. And even if the Ravens want a division rival out of the playoffs, like they're going to be smart with their own players and probably not play their starters the entire game, like a quarter or two, would be my guess, if they're even going to do that. So, you know, just because the Ravens hate the Steelers, they're going to be more worried about their own team and their own players than worrying about like what that means for the Steelers' chances of making the playoffs, which, by the way, I'm sure that for the whole AFC, they'd rather see the Steelers in the playoffs than the Bills. So, you know, like, so this game is really going to come down to the Bills being able to rise to the occasion, beat a team that is down with some injuries. They still have Tyreek Hill, although his ankle's not 100% either. And they still have, they still have Achan, who the Bills didn't really have to contend with much last time they played him either. So it's still not going to be an easy game.
Oh no, not even remotely. And the thing is too, it's been a long time, right? Week 4. It's tougher to play a team a second time. All the things that the Bills did well to skullfuck the Miami Dolphins in week 4, Mike McDaniel is now privy to. All the mistakes that Mike McDaniel made week 4, my guess is probably learned from those mistakes. He's not going to make those same mistakes twice. You have a player in Devin Achan, whatever his name is. I still haven't learned it. I'll probably learn it this week. You have a player in Achan who can do all of the things that have absolutely destroyed the Buffalo Bills, right? Screen game, speed, big play, going east-west. It helps that there's no Jalen Waddle. You can obviously pay more attention to Tyreek Hill with no Jalen Waddle. If they have Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane, it's very difficult to figure out where to go with your defense. So they have a lot of speed. They have a lot of playmakers, even without Jalen Waddle, and the Buffalo Bills are going to have their hands absolutely full. And that's why hopefully this offense can course correct this week, because just like the Dallas game, you want to make the Miami Dolphins one-dimensional. You want to take the ball out of the running back's hands. In order to do that, you have to have a lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that should be an emphasis for the Bills this week. Look what the Ravens were able to just do to the Dolphins. I know there were a lot of big plays through the air from Lamar in that game, but they were, if you watch that game, they were really running the ball. HN, yeah, per the Fins Media Guide, yeah. They, the Gus bus was rolling against the Dolphins. They can be run against right now, and so wouldn't mind seeing a little bit of that James Cook course correction too, a la the Dallas game. I'm not saying it's going to be that extreme because it's probably going to need more than that, but would be nice to see the Bills really kind of get that running game going, kind of give Miami maybe a taste of their own medicine as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be very, very nice, right? Like, I'm keeping my mouth shut on social media this week, and I'm going to let the Buffalo Bills do the talking, but I have to say that nothing has been more insufferable this year than Miami Dolphins fans. I don't think Patriots fans, even at the peak of the Patriots' greatness, were as insufferable as these Miami fans. Jets fans really, like, when they got Aaron Rodgers, they were pretty insufferable, right? But like, nothing holds a candle to the Miami Dolphins fans. Their social media presence and how insufferable they are. So it would be really nice, after everything we've had to hear for the last 10 weeks, right, for the Buffalo Bills to go into Miami Gardens, to beat the hell out of that football team, to secure the number 2 seed in the AFC, and to head into the postseason. It would feel very, very nice. And I do believe there really aren't very many scenarios where the Buffalo Bills will have to play the Miami Dolphins in the first round. And I would gather that if the Miami Dolphins don't get to play at home, they will not advance past the first round of the playoffs.
I think there's a scenario where, depending on whether, I can't remember which team it is, whether it's the Titans or the Ravens, but I think if one of those teams wins and the Bills lose, then the Bills will end up with the 7th seed and have to play at Miami in the first round.
I can't do that again. I'm so sick of having to play division teams in the playoffs. So we had to play the Patriots, we had to play the Dolphins. It was fine because we beat them, and it was especially fine because we beat down the Patriots as badly as we did. But the amount of anxiety I felt in that Dolphins game, almost losing to a third-string quarterback, was out of this world. And I don't know if we're going to lose in the playoffs, you might as well lose to a team that's not in your division and they can't hold it over you for an entire offseason.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably end up in Arrowhead again, having to go there for like the 8th millionth time in a row.
If we lose and then we get help, we'd have to possibly go to Arrowhead. But if we win, we're at home versus one of them.
No, right. But if we lose and we end up the 6th seed, then we're going to Arrowhead.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We wanted to end this show a little bit early today so you can catch the rest of this national championship semifinal. It is 14-14 right now, Texas and Washington. They are going back-to-back, just running for tutties. So it is a shootout in the Sugar Bowl. There's still 10 minutes left in the second quarter because of the Rose Bowl. These games started so late. So I want you guys to go enjoy that. If you're listening on demand, thank you so much. Leave a comment. Always helps us with the algorithm. When this show is over, leave a comment, helps us with the algorithm. And as always, if you want to support us here at Cover One or this show specifically, the number one thing you can do is click that share button, text it to a friend, email it to a friend, family member, anyone you think would enjoy this program, talking Buffalo Bills football with us every Monday night and every pregame. Thank you guys so much. You guys make the show 100% what it is. Dave, any final thoughts before we head out of here?
No, I just put in the comments section myself. Comment section was fiery tonight, and I liked it. I think people
I like it too.
Really, really.
I I busted
Like,
out some swear
it-
words for the first time in a while too. I was a little.
Well,
loose tonight.
tension's high right now, right? Because
Yeah.
there's so much on the line and there's so many ranges of outcomes
Mm.
here from the 2 seed all the way to not being in the playoffs. So, man, everything concentrated into this one game just seems, yeah, the tension's high.
It's stressful. It is stressful. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We will see you Sunday morning as we prepare ourselves, and we'll have some other games to talk about because the Saturday games are Baltimore and Pittsburgh, right? And it's Indy and the Texans. How funny would it be if they tied? And
Oh my God.
we're talking Sunday morning about a Texans Colts tie.
Could you imagine? Oh my God.
But either way, like, we could have a playoff spot secured by Sunday morning the next time we talk to you guys, or we could be waiting for the results of Jags Titans, which is 1 p.m. window on Sunday, or we could have to wait all the way until Sunday night. I just, for the sake of my overall health and well-being, I really do hope we have at least a playoff spot secured before we head into that game against the Miami Dolphins. I really do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comment section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!